All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to get familiar with two super useful event listeners in the web firm framework for Java, ParentGainedListener and ParentLostListener. Honestly, if you're building any kind of dynamic web app, these are tools you're absolutely going to want to know about. So, let's talk about a common headache for web developers. Our user interfaces are almost never static these days, are they? We're always adding new elements, getting rid of old ones, moving things around, and all that action, while great for the user, can create some tricky problems for us. I mean, have you ever found yourself in this spot? You need to fire off a cool animation the instant an element shows up. Or maybe you have to clean up a widget or some other resource the very second its container gets removed. Trying to nail that timing manually? It can turn into a real tangled mess super fast. Well, this is one of those places where the wffweb framework just shines. Instead of making you guess or constantly check the UI state, it gives you these perfect little hooks right into a component's lifecycle, exactly when it moves. And it solves this whole timing problem with two dedicated listeners that are designed for one very specific job: to react the moment a component's relationship with its parent changes. And those are, you guessed it, the ParentGainedListener and the ParentLostListener. What's so cool about these two is that they are perfect mirror images of each other. You've got ParentGainedListener, which fires when a tag gets a new parent. This is your go-to for all setup tasks, right? Kicking off animations, fetching some data just for that component, you name it. Then on the flip side, you have ParentLostListener. This one fires when that parent-child bond is broken. It's perfect for all your cleanup duty, disposing of resources, saving the component state, that kind of thing.
Okay, theory is great and all, but let's see what this actually looks like in the code. We'll start with the ParentGainedListener.
So first things first, we set up our players. As you can see here, we're just creating two basic div tags. Just think of div1 as the piece we want to keep an eye on, and div2 is the container it might eventually land in.
Step 2, we attach our listener right onto div1, the tag we're watching. We call addParentGainedListener, and then, with a nice clean Lambda function, we just tell it what to do. In this case, we'll just print a message. And notice that the method gives us something back, that long value, the listener slot ID. Hang on to that, it's going to be super important in a minute. And here's the magic moment. The second we run this line of code, making div1 a child of div2, the framework knows that div1 just gained a parent. And bam! Our listener is triggered, and that message pops up in the console. It's just so direct and clean, no need for any messy state checking logic. All right, let's check out its twin, the ParentLostListener. As you've probably figured out by now, the process is going to feel very familiar.
For this example, we start things off a little differently. We still create our two div tags, but this time, we make div1 a child of div2 right from the get-go. So when our code starts, div1 already has a home.
Now, just like we did before, we attach the ParentLostListener directly to div1. The logic is now armed and ready, basically just sitting there, waiting for the moment div1 gets kicked out of the nest by its parent, div2.
And there's the trigger. When our code tells the parent, div2, to remove div1 as a child, that connection is instantly broken. And as soon as that happens, the listener on div1 fires, and we see our addParentLostListener invoked message. Simple as that.
Oh, and it's worth pointing out, this doesn't just work for a single removeChild call. If you were to tell the parent to get rid of all its children using removeAllChildren, the ParentLostListener for div1 would still fire. It's really reliable.
Okay, so adding listeners is awesome, but good software development means we also have to clean up after ourselves, right? So let's talk about how to properly manage these listeners so you don't end up with memory leaks or weird bugs.
So remember that long value we got back earlier, the listener slot ID? Think of it like a coat check ticket. It's a unique handle for the specific listener you just created. You need to hold on to that picket because it's the only way to tell the framework exactly which listener you want to get rid of later.
Now, this is a super important detail, straight from the documentation. The listener slot ID is not globally unique. It is unique only for the corresponding tag. What does that mean in plain English? It means that listener slot ID number 5 on div1 has absolutely nothing to do with listener slot ID number 5 on some other tag. Each component manages its own set of IDs. So the whole lifecycle is beautifully simple. Step 1, you add your listener, and you save that unique ID it gives you. Step 2, whenever you're done with it, you just call the matching remove method like removeParentGainedListener on the very same tag, and you pass back that ID you saved. That's it. The listener is detached and can be cleaned up by the system.
Okay, we've been deep in the technical details. Let's pull back up to 30,000 feet for a second. Why are these seemingly simple listeners actually such a big deal for developers?
You know, it really all boils down to this. These listeners let you build components that are actually smart. They become self-aware. They know when they're part of the UI and when they're not. This lets you decouple your logic, so a component can manage its own state and resources. You don't need some parent component micromanaging everything. And that leads to cleaner, more modular, and way more reliable code.
So there you have it. It's an incredibly powerful and clean way to control a component's lifecycle. The possibilities are huge, everything from complex animations to really efficient resource management. It kind of just leaves you with one big question, right? What powerful UI behaviors are you going to build with these?